Welcome GRD 132 to ex3 Tracing E with Figma. This was done with Gravit in the past, so I'm recording a new video with Figma. This will be a little different and there'll be some challenges, so you'll have to pay attention. And I have this open temporarily, so if you see this, don't do it yet because I'm recording the video, so I don't have a video yet. It'll be an older video, but what you're going to do is either click the link here, but for now, I'm just going to go into here and find the shared link. I have all the instructions here, but this is the shared link. I'm going to do this the same way you would do it, so I'm going to click on the shared link. And I had Figma open and I was logged in. Now when this shared link opens, you don't have to keep this tab open, so you could close that. This file will open, it'll say view only, and you'll duplicate to your drafts first and then open it. You'll reopen it and then rename it. And where it has last F and copy, just put your last name in there, first initial, and hit enter. And now it's part of your drafts. And what you'll see in here, by the way, the original E's, this is locked. It's an SVG file from Gravit, so leave it alone and we'll work on top of here. So we'll do everything on top of here. And we'll be ready to go. What we're going to be doing here is working with vector tools so you understand how shapes are created, how these paths of fonts are actually created with vector. They're all vector, they're all outline fonts, if you ever heard the term outline fonts, and we're going to be making the outlines. So we're just going to be studying a little bit. This has more to do with anatomy, so you understand the subtleties of these fonts. We have a sans-serif font, a cap. We have a lowercase e, and then we have a lowercase e that's oblique, meaning it's kind of skewed. Now, we don't have the ability to skew in Figma, so we'll do something else, but it won't be that hard. And then you can see these letters are very different. These are the serif versions, and there's a lot of little subtleties in here, and we're going to work with the pen tool and trace it. And if you've never done that, it may be a little challenging, so take your time. If you have struggles, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just trying to learn about the shapes of the letters here. So what you're going to do first is you're going to zoom in to one of these letters. I'll zoom into the E and have it kind of fill my screen, and I'm going to use the pen tool. And use the pen tool, it kind of goes into editing mode because you're creating anchor points. So you're creating anchor points as you go with the pen tool. And I'm just going to start at any corner and I'm just going to kind of go around. So I'm going to start here and kind of go around that way. This is pretty easy because they're all straight lines. So all you're going to do is just click on a corner, click once, and then go down here. And if you stay straight, it should line up pretty straight, and then click, and then go down here, click, click, click. You see what's going on here? We're just clicking and connecting these. And if you have to edit any, edit them afterwards. So I'll click, and then to finish, just go here and click on the final point. Now if you see a blue line here, just hit escape. And if you still need to edit something, like if you go down here and you think, wow, that should be out a little, just go over here to this, your move tool, and you could take that and maybe just use your arrow, nudge it down, and click on here, select it, then use your arrow, nudge it down. I'm going to nudge it over, and I'm going to click this one and nudge it over. I'm using my arrow key, and that's pretty much good enough. So that was pretty easy, and when you're done, hit done. And then if you want to give it a color, you could add a fill, hit the plus sign. Now it's a gray color again, so just change the color. I'll make it kind of a red color, and you can take away the stroke. You don't need a stroke, and then hit the X. That's it. You did that one. We're a sixth of the way done with this. So I'm going to go down here and use the lowercase. This is a sans serif, and there are curves here, but this is very uniform. And if you want to go here and just call this E, sans, we'll call it sans. That's the first one we did. It's E sans. Now this one we'll name like E lowercase sans because it's still a sans, but it's a lowercase e. The other one we'll call oblique. So this is just a standard letter E. Now this has curves, so we can't just make straight lines. And there's an inner part and an outer part. So there's an inner path, which we'll do after. So don't do it together. So I'm going to take my pen tool. Now watch. This is easy. I think easier. Some of it is not easy, but this is easy. I'm going to click. And then you're just going to move up here. You're not clicking anything. Now when you go here, you're not going to click. You're going to click and drag this way. So I'm going to click and drag, and as you drag across, I'm dragging to my left, you can see I'm making that curve. And it's not perfect, and then I'll just leave go. And now I left go. And now when I go down here, I'm just going to lay this on here. I'm not doing anything. I'm just moving and lay it on as perfect as you can. And then just click. There. And now this will be straight again. And now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click and drag again. That'll make a curve point and that'll make those handles come out. So I'll click and drag. And I'm looking back to see how it looks behind me on the back of that E. And I'll leave go, letting go, and then lay it where you think it should be. Now, right about here, that's probably good. I'm just going to lay it there. Click. Now you have a straight line, so click. Now you have a curve. Now you can't click again, so I'm going to go right about here, or maybe even over here a little bit, and I'm going to click and drag and follow. You see where I'm following that, and I'm letting the back end kind of fill in that little area. And it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. You could fix it later. And then when it's pretty close, leave go, and then go up here. Now, if you find you have this big curve here, you could click and fix it later, or what you could do is you could click right on this point. Click right on this point, and now you have no curve, and now you could kind of make it as you go. So now I'm dragging up and kind of making that curve. And now, because it's going over here, you want to click right on this point. Click right on it with the tip of the pen. Click. And now you have a straight line, and now you have a straight line. And then click to finish it off. And if you have any kind of line coming out, hit escape. Now if you need to fix anything, let's fix it first. Go back to your arrow. Come over here. Let's bring this in a little, because I see that's kind of off a little up there. You could kind of move this up or down. That's not too bad. This looks a little off here, so I'm going to try to straighten that out a little. And then here, I might just nudge it over. I could select this point and just use my arrow, nudge it over a little. And this one, I might nudge it over a little and down. And I could try and zoom in. That looks pretty good. This one could be nudged over, so I'll click and I'll nudge it over, just one click. And that's pretty good. And let's see here. I might shorten this handle a little to bring that in. And I might lengthen this one to bring it out. That looks pretty good. Now, here's the tricky part. Don't start the inside of the E. Hit done. Okay, and now what you're going to do is click off, and we're going to draw the inside of the E. And this won't be hard. We'll take the pen tool, and it'll make another vector tool. So don't do it while you're inside that editing mode. We want it to be a separate shape. And now I'll click once to make a straight line. I'll go up here to about the middle, and I'll click and drag across, going across, and then when it looks pretty good, leave go, and then I'll just lay this down here, and that's good. And then I'll go back to this arrow, this move tool, and I'll see what I have here. I'll grab this handle, maybe move it in, shorten it a little. It's always better if you shorten the handle, and this one looks pretty good. I'll try to move it around a little, and that looks pretty good. So I have vector 1 and vector 2. Now I'm done. So hit, actually this one down here, that's not that great down here. I'll go back to vector 1. Actually, don't worry about that. Hit done, because you're working on this. So hit done, and now go back to vector 1 if you have to. Remember I said it doesn't have to be perfect. Now if you double click, it'll go into that editing mode. And I just might kind of fix that a little bit, just a little off. It's not perfect. That little curve there. I'll pull this out. And that's vector 1, vector 2. And I'll hit done. Okay, it's not perfect. If I zoom out, it won't look too bad. And that's okay. So I have these two vectors. And what I'm going to do with these two vectors, vector 2 and vector 1. Now vector 2, the one we did on the inside, is on top. That's good. Keep it there. And what we have to do, this is really odd with Figma, but I have to select this one, vector 2, and it doesn't have a fill. And I'm actually going to take away the stroke, minus, and give it a fill. It's like gray right now. And then this one, vector 1, it has a stroke. I'm going to take it away, hit the minus sign, and I'm going to give it a fill. Now it's going to be a gray color. You could change it if you want, change it to anything. So now there are two filled shapes. This is filled with that red color. This is filled with a gray color. Could be any color. Could be green. Doesn't matter. Could be green. Okay. they have to be filled shapes to do this. Now this is where little things come in with Figma that make it a little more challenging. So if you did it with outlines, it runs into problems. So I'm going to highlight these two shapes. They're two filled shapes. They both have fills on them. And then I'm going to go here to subtract, which is actually going to punch a hole out of that. So I'll go to subtract, and that's what I want. And now if I want to change the color, I could go here and make it, I'll just make it a darker red. And now that acts as a hole. That's see-through there. So if I put it over top of something, if I moved it, you could see I could see through it. So that's what I want. And that was a little harder. And this is subtract. I could even go on this subtract and flatten it so that it's permanent. And I'm going to double click on here and give it a name and just call it E sans, and you can call it regular. And that's it. All right. So those are our two paths. Now this one. Now, if you zoom out, you can see it's very similar, except it's skewed. Now, if we had a skew tool, we would just skew it. And I think there's plugins you could do it, but let's try to do it manually. I don't think it's going to be that hard. So this is what skewing is. This is what oblique is, because it's not really changing the letter of the italic. It's just kind of tilting it a little. So I'm going to copy this. So you can copy this. You could hold down Option or Alt and just kind of move it and make a copy. If you have any problem doing that, you can also do edit duplicate, and it'll put it right on top, and then you can move it. But here it is. And if you want to even turn down the opacity, I'll go over here and turn down the opacity of this a little so I can kind of see through. I'll turn it down so I can see through that just a little. And I'll zoom in so it kind of takes up my screen, not completely. And now what I want to do is I want to edit. And that's why it was important to flatten it so we can edit these paths. I'm going to go in here and edit. Now you'll see the anchor points. And actually, I'll hit done a second. Let me just bump it down a little, just so it's aligned a little better. And I'll even bump it over so that's there. So we're pretty good here. Now let's go into edit again. And what I want to do is take this one and just kind of move it over. And then let me take this one. See that handle? I'm just going to kind of shorten it and shorten this one. And or what I could do, I could even grab this thing. I could have moved it over a little and then adjusted it. I could have done that too. But I know this is a little tricky. I'm going to take this, turn that. See, I'm turning that just a little bit so it lays on there. Now, these are working in two different directions. You should actually put this on mirror angle so they're smooth. So they work together like that. So I'm going to smooth them out. Then I'm just going to drag it back on the line as close as I can. That's good. I'm going to take this one, move it in a little. Take this, move it. And now if you do that, it means you grab the whole thing. So just undo. Control Z or Command Z. And make sure you grab there on the point. Make sure you see the point. Highlight it like that. Now it's highlighted. And now grab it. Move it over there. And grab this one. Try to move it over. Maybe you want to shorten this handle a little. And I'm not going to worry about the little overlap. Now I'll zoom in even more and kind of fix this. I'm going to grab this point, move it over. I'll grab this point and just kind of put it back a little. Grab this point, just move it over a little, move this over a little. And then click on this one. If you click on them, you'll see the handles come out. So I'm going to grab that and drag that. And maybe I'll grab this one and shorten it just a little. And I have a little issue over here. I'm going to grab that, pull it out, and grab this one and kind of shorten it. Now, I know me doing it, it looks a little easier, although it's still not easy for me. It's still, you know, a lot of little detail to work with here. And I have a little issue here. I'm going to have a extra little thing here. Looks like I have an extra anchor point in here. This one. Now I'm going to click on this and do Shift Delete and just get rid of it. I don't need it. Now I'm going to grab this handle, flip it around, try to straighten it up like that, and Let me come back over here, fix this one, pull this one out just a little so it lines up, and that's not too bad. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close, and that's all I want for that. I'll even move this down, move this down. If you find yourself going crazy with this, it's okay. It's part of it, part of learning how these paths are created. They're created with vector art, and if you haven't worked with vector art, it can be a little tricky. Now, that looks pretty good. When you're done, of course I keep messing with these. When you're done, you hit done. And there it is. And we now have 3. And if you want to increase the opacity here, I'll double click on there, put 100. Now it's solid. So that was the sans E's. There's a capital E sans, which is all straight lines. There's the sans regular, which is kind of very oval, and it has an inner shape and an outer shape. It has 2 paths. It's actually a compound path. And this E is basically a skewed version of that one. So if we had a skew tool, we would just kind of bend it. And if we did, we could do that in Illustrator. I think even in Gravit it lets you do it. There's other programs that let you skew it, but for some reason Figma sometimes has weird little things where it won't let you skew it without a plugin. And it wasn't that hard to move those things over a little bit. Or at least I'm saying that. You may not think that. Now, what you could do here with these 3, once you're done, we're going to take a break here, and then in part 2 we're going to work on these a little bit. These 3, you could shift click so they're all 3 selected, and then group them. You could go here and go Object, Group, and just call them sans E's. And you could always go in the group and work with them if you want, but that way they're all kind of together here. Then when you work on the other ones, they'll be kind of separate, so you won't be confused with all these different E's. Now these are going to be challenging. I won't sugarcoat it. There's a lot of little details here, and you don't have to be perfect, especially if you haven't worked with vectors. So we're going to do that in part 2.